Hi, I'm Jessica G, and this is the Just in Time podcast. If you're struggling today, I want you to know this podcast is here for you, but it's not a substitute for professional help. If you're in a crisis or feel unsafe, please call or text 988 or dial 911 for immediate support. There are people out there who will listen and can help. On this show, I'll be sharing personal experiences, mindset shifts, talking with key experts, and sharing real tools that help me go from barely surviving to thriving. This is not about quick fixes or one-size-fits-all advice. It's raw, it's honest, it's what worked for me and what I believe can help others too. Let's walk together from darkness to hope. Hello, everybody. I'm Jessica G, and this is the Just in Time podcast. We are so excited about today's episode. I know last episode we talked about bringing Jacqueline Sharp on, and she is here with us today. Thank you so much for taking the time and being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
She is the area director for AFSP. And for those of you that don't know, AFSP is the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Mm-hmm. So I guess we'll go into a little bit about how we met.
Yeah.
Okay. So I opened up the nonprofit. I obviously had a mission and whatnot, but I was very, very, very scared about putting myself out there. I didn't know next steps. And I know I wanted to make a difference and an impact, but I just wasn't sure how. And I didn't really have the confidence to talk about, suicide, education, prevention, and my story.
Yeah.
And we met in a coffee shop. And she looked at me and she knew right where I was at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I was super pregnant.
That's right.
And so I think you called maybe and said, hey, I'm interested in learning more information about suicide and sharing my story and talking about it safely. And so I said, sure, sis, let's meet for coffee. And I just remember walking in. And the one thing I remember from that meeting was you were willing and eager to learn. And that's huge. When you come across people that want to learn the appropriate ways to talk about suicide, makes my job so easy because I can teach that. We can teach that. That's why we're here. So it was great. And then it started a journey of us just, really kind of working with each other. And it kind of spread to our walks, our events, your events, and that advocacy side of stuff. So it just grew from there, which is why I love, AFSP and the grassroots movement of it.
Yes. And I believe 1986 is when they were established.
Yeah.
And they're based a lot on research and development, and they have presentations. So we'll get into that in a minute. But I became a presenter, and Jacqueline actually trained me for Talk Save Lives.
Yeah.
And so I think I did a presentation at a couple of schools, and I was so nervous, you guys, just like I was nervous to start this podcast. It took me months to get here. But one of the things that Jacqueline really helped me with was she looked at me and she was like, okay, she's like, I see where you're at. Let's get you educated properly. Because even at that time, I'm just going to give one example, had been 5 or 6 years, right? And I just was so afraid to perpetuate a problem, or I was afraid to put myself out there or say the wrong thing because you just never know, right? And a lot of people will go through loss and they want to do something and they want to make a difference.
Yeah.
And I believe you guys have a rule around that, right?
Yeah, it's not a hard and fast rule, but suicide loss, grief is not linear. And it's really important that we take care of loss survivors. Unfortunately, what we know from research is that loss survivors themselves are at a greater risk for suicide. And so that's part of our mission is to take care of those that are affected by suicide. And we normally say, we want you to wait about a year to 2 years after your loss to really engage with us.
Right.
But we also, we kind of weigh that according to the person.
Mm-hmm.
Some loss survivors throw themselves into the work because that's what's going to help them heal.
Right.
That's going to be part of their healing journey.
But then within the same token, you want them to be educated so they're not causing more harm.
Yeah.
And we're gonna dive in that today too, like the do's and don'ts with Miss Jacqueline Sharp. And you and AFSP gave me the confidence to actually start moving that needle forward to talk about it.
Yeah.
You gave me the confidence in AFSP and to do that. And even after going through the training with you, I was still nervous to do it, right? It's like, it's such a heavy topic.
It's such a heavy topic. There's still so much stigma associated with it. And when I train volunteers and loss survivors, I always talk to them about, listen, we ask how far out you are from your loss, not to, bring that back up or cause any pain, but really is to...
Or devalue what they want to do or any of that. It's just you're looking out for safety. And
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people...
some people understand, some people don't.
Correct. And people will ask questions, and they're not ever questions that they're meaning to be inappropriate or mean. It's just a lack of education. And so you have to be prepared when you go out into the community that you may get some potentially offensive questions. But that's why we do what we do, is because we need to meet that with education.
Yes.
We need to meet that with common sense. It has to be something that people can understand, digest, and really be able to take out.
Right. And what is your thoughts with the healthcare system? Do you feel like our healthcare system is educated enough?
Well, I mean, not just my thoughts. We look at some of the data that we pulled here in the state of Arkansas. Arkansas Children's Hospital always does an annual review of the community. What are the community needs? But also internally, what are the needs of their doctors and their and their medical staff? And the number one thing that came up, and this was a couple of years ago, is that they did not feel prepared for all of the behavioral health and the mental health challenges that they're seeing in the ER. They've seen such an increase. And so they don't feel equipped. I mean, my father is a retired pediatrician, and he even talks about there's just not a ton of training that happens in medical schools.
I have clients that are, therapists, psychologists, doctors, and they still use some of the, do not use words.
Correct.
The no words.
Correct.
Yeah. And, when I met you, I didn't even know this, right? And I think this is why education is so important. And I will stop somebody in their tracks and I'll be like, hey, we don't use the word commit because of X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And we'll get into that in a second because, I think I met you about 6 years after the loss.
Yeah.
And I think I was still using the word commit.
Yeah.
And I think maybe at that coffee shop, you may have told me that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know. And then it really hit me in the training program. I remember you told us a story and you said there was a 9-year-old girl that had died by suicide. And the mother, I believe, reported it had seen it reported on the news as this 9-year-old committed suicide. And the mother was like, my daughter did not commit a crime.
Right.
And so that's always stuck in my head.
Yeah.
I think you shared that with us in our training program.
That's one of our lost survivors lost her daughter. And, you think about our language is ever evolving. One time I did a presentation at a pretty major corporation, and I got asked, why is that important to change our language from committed to die by suicide? And I just said, again, our language is ever evolving. And if there are ways that we can change our language to make it safer, to be more inclusive of our lost survivors, because individuals that die by suicide, they're not committing a crime. They're not committing a sin.
Right. Like you wouldn't say he committed brain cancer.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
So that's the narrative we're trying to change.
Yes.
If somebody dies from a heart attack, we're not
they committed a heart attack. Exactly. Right.
And that's ultimately where we're coming from, is we want to take science and say, look, this is what we know from science. This is what's happening in the brain. And people, when they are in suicidal crisis, they're not able to access the logistical side of their brain.
Correct.
And they're experiencing the most pain they've ever experienced in their whole life.
And this reminds me of last episode. We said, we talked about when someone's in a crisis, this is not the time to tell somebody, hey, let's reprogram your brain.
Correct.
They cannot access that part of their brain.
Yes.
When we were talking about neuroplasticity, harnessing neuroplasticity to fight suicide, which is changing the way you think, that is not a crisis approach. Like that's like true prevention before somebody is in a crisis.
Right.
And I want to touch one thing. In the presentation, it talks about how brains of suicide
individuals who die by suicide.
Yes.
They differ from them.
Their brains differ from those that don't, right?
Yes.
So I think that, Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks about harnessing neuroplasticity to fight suicide. And our brains really do matter when it comes to this.
Yes.
And I love that AFSP is backed up with research.
Oh, yeah. And that, I'll expand on that. So what we know of that is that it differs specifically in the impulsivity section of the brain, which if you think about suicidal crisis, that makes sense. It's oftentimes an impulsive thought that happens or an impulsive act that happens. And so what we know from research is that differs. And so that has also driven our education that we do and our training that we do of, listen, somebody can't access like that thinking through process of like, oh, but I have a family. Oh, but they can't access that.
Right.
So
they do not have control over that part of their brain.
Correct.
Yeah.
So what we have to do is meet that with empathy, compassion, a active listening ear.
Mm-hmm.
We want to create time because what we do know about suicidal crisis when it's happening in the brain, it's often temporary.
Yeah.
Now that time frame could be 5 minutes, it could be an hour, it could be a day, but we want to create time for the brain to kick out of that.
And I think this is so important. So right now, I just want to clarify, we are talking about what to do when we're in a crisis.
Right.
So say you have a friend and they're in a crisis. What should we do, Jacqueline?
Yeah. So if you have a friend that's in crisis, the first thing you're going to do is you want to ask directly, talk to them about what they're experiencing, what's going on. And you want to kind of ask, where are you? I've noticed maybe some of your behaviors have changed. That's a big one that people often say. Mm-hmm. We often hear there were no warning signs. And oftentimes warning signs are subtle.
Right.
Truly. And I will say, you shared that you used the word committed before meeting me. I used that word before being here with AFSP, being a staff member and being educated. It was not something that I knew, we need to shift. So that's a thing everyone has to kind of learn. And there's definitely grace in learning that. But the same concept of, when we're addressing somebody who is in active suicidal crisis, we want to start asking them questions like, I've noticed that you are sleeping too much. Mm-hmm. You want to call out behaviors. If they're come up from a place of love.
Correct.
Not judgment, right? Because it's already such a hard topic. And I think the reason why I lost Justin and he didn't reach out to somebody that could really, truly help him. I mean, he did reach out to a couple of friends, but a lot of people say, oh, I had no idea or this and that. But when you really dive into it, there were the signs and there were a few people, but those people, did not know what to do because they were not educated. Right. And, suicide is the second leading cause of death in college students. Yeah. And so, but anyways, I don't want to get off track. But,
no, you're good.
But so, and that's, so anything, what we educate people on is if you notice a change, maybe it's the way they're talking, maybe it's the behavior that they're displaying or the mood that they're displaying. Anything that seems abnormal or unusual, ask somebody, hey, I noticed this was going on. Just want to check in with you. Are you okay?
Yes.
And then that is going to allow them the opportunity to kind of open up and start talking. If you're sensing that they are saying things like, I feel like a burden to my family. Mm-hmm. I am in an overwhelming amount of pain. Mm-hmm. One thing that we do educate people on is you want to ask about suicide directly. Oftentimes when I talk to people, they'll say, well, I asked, are you thinking of harming yourself? And well, that is important. That can mean a myriad of things.
Exactly. I love this. This is one of my favorite little myths to debunk but also it's very scary too to ask this question, but it's very empowering.
It's very scary. It's very awkward. So
it can be very awkward. You know what? I had to practice it. Yeah. I literally had to practice it, and it takes courage to actually ask this question. Yes. But I think the biggest reason why people don't ask it, people are like, what is the question? The question is,
are you thinking of killing yourself?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or are you thinking about suicide?
Are you thinking about suicide? Direct. We want direct.
Yes. So you can say, are you thinking about killing yourself?
Yep.
Are you suicidal right now?
Yes.
What's another way to ask?
Do you have a plan to die by suicide?
Okay. So,
and the plan part's important, which if you say, are you thinking about killing yourself? And they say yes, then the next
ask, do you have a plan? I have a plan. Right. So you can kind of gauge where they're at.
Correct. And that leads to the second. So the first big piece that we talk about in suicide prevention, there's two things that are vitally important that we found through research. Time. We want to create time for the brain to kick out of that suicidal crisis.
Right.
So we can provide resources and we can get somebody to talk themselves down.
Yes. Right? And that's why we love 988.
Yeah. That's why we love 988.
Yes.
It's such a vital resource.
It truly is. And I mean, I think there's a lot of people that don't know about it. But
for sure.
So just to clarify, it is okay to ask somebody, are you struggling with suicide?
Yeah.
Are you having thoughts of suicide? Do you want to kill yourself?
Yes.
Do you have a plan in action?
Yep.
And so I want everybody to remember this, because you may be the only person that asks that question.
Yeah.
You may be the only person that ever asks.
Correct. And expanding on that, oftentimes I'll hear, this is a major myth in suicide prevention, is that, well, if I ask somebody about suicide, then I'm going to give them the idea.
Right, which is not true.
It's not true.
Thank you for following that, because that's what I really wanted to say. I was like, that's where I was going. Yes, it is not true. Can you say that again for our listeners?
Yeah. So
I really want to drive that in the brain.
No, I love it. Yeah. So there's a big myth that if we ask somebody directly, are you thinking about suicide or are you thinking about killing yourself? Then you're going to give that person the idea. And it's not true. That's not true through research.
Yeah. So don't be afraid to ask.
Don't be afraid to ask. Ask the question. And kind of following up on that and expanding more on that.
And don't feel bad about asking either.
Correct.
Because you could be saving a life. I think for me, I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to be offended. They're going to think that I think that they're crazy, right? Because I think the reason why Justin didn't reach out was because I was labeled as the crazy one in my family. Okay, I struggled with suicide from the age of 13. I was labeled crazy, and he's my younger brother. He's 10 years younger than me, and he saw that. And he saw how, people around me treated me because I said, I am thinking about killing myself. The age of 13, I had my first attempt. I was being bullied. My parents were going through a divorce. Like, there was abuse going on. There's like multiple reasons why somebody, would want to die by suicide and whatnot. Yeah. And it's because they are in so much pain. Yeah. And like, the brain obviously isn't fully developed and all of the things, but I had struggled with those my whole life, really. And I kept fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting because I knew this is not the way. Suicide is not the way. Right. And I held on until I found, I went through the healthcare system. But I just feel like there isn't enough education out there. And that's why I wanted to be a part of an organization that truly helps people. Because I think what you do, Jacqueline, is just amazing. And I think, like, you don't even probably know the amount of lives that you've changed. Yeah. Sorry. Nope.
So I will say, on that same vein, and you can talk about this as somebody with lived experience, then I think it's important to hear from people with lived experience, which is why I talk about my lived experience and you share about yours. When we ask somebody, are you thinking about suicide? Somebody who is thinking about suicide is given the opportunity to say yes.
Right.
And that is so powerful to say out loud. Yeah. That I'm not okay. Yeah. And it also makes you feel seen. Yeah. Which is huge. I mean, do you agree with?
Absolutely.
And if you had somebody at the age of 13 saying, Jessica, are you thinking about suicide?
Right. Nobody asked me that question. Not in school, not any of my counselors.
And I also think that also speaks to a much bigger thing that we could get into. But, oftentimes when I talk to people, they're like, just cannot believe that children would even remotely have the thought around suicide.
Right. Didn't you guys just come up with a new program for kids?
Yeah.
What is it called?
So, we've launched an initiative here in Arkansas called Project Renew. Mm-hmm. So it's a high school initiative. It's a student-led suicide prevention initiative in schools. Yeah.
But then there's also another one for kindergartners or for
so we have It's Real Middle School.
Okay.
And then It's Real Teens and Mental Health.
I thought there's like a talking bear.
Oh, Gizmo.
Gizmo. Is it a bear?
Yes. No, he's a dog.
A dog. Yes. I haven't updated myself with where you guys were at with Gizmo, but
yeah. So Gizmo is a third-party program that we use. The idea behind it is it's a super watered-down safety plan.
Okay.
And it's third and fourth graders.
Third and fourth graders. That's what I thought.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So the idea is...
Because Sheila, I think, is a presenter for that. She was talking about how much she loved doing that because she was there support to help me do my first presentation.
Yes. Yeah. So Gizmo's great. The idea behind it is we want to start talking to kiddos. And I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I have already started talking to my kids about, the worry monster. And let's talk about when you're feeling overwhelmed or when you're feeling like, your stomach hurts. Mm-hmm. Things we can do to help that feeling go away, to make it feel better. What are some things? And that's the same idea as Gizmo, is we go through, okay, when I'm feeling upset, can I go talk to a trusted adult? Who's that trusted adult?
I love that.
And I'm feeling overwhelmed. Can I do jumping jacks? Will that help me? Or can I do some physical activity?
Teaching them at a young age.
Yeah.
I think that's so important. And if that's something that's taught in school, that's amazing, because think about, I'll just think of myself for an example. If somebody came to my school when I was younger and that resource was available, that would be super helpful for somebody who's coming from a very physically and verbally, emotionally abusive family.
Yeah.
And where in my family, anytime something went wrong, it's like, well, let's just go, kill ourselves. And it's like, that's not what you want to be teaching your child. And so that was a learned behavior within my family.
Right.
And, it's sad, but it's programming, and it's,
for sure.
And I think there's a lot of children out there that are abused. I mean, I used to volunteer for the children's shelter.
Yeah.
And my heart really just goes out to kids. So I love that you guys have that program. That's beautiful.
For sure. Well, and that's part of that postvention piece. What we know is ACEs also contribute to, so that's adolescent childhood experiences. Mm-hmm. And those or adverse childhood experiences, excuse me. And when those happen to kiddos, that can actually put them at a higher risk for suicide.
Absolutely.
So it's super important for us in that prevention side of things. You think of it as, I think it's Desmond Tutu who famously talked about with suicide, think of it as a river. We're all in a river. Mm-hmm. And what we want is to stop folks from getting down to the suicidal crisis way in advance.
True prevention.
Stop trying to pull them out of the river. Let's stop them from even getting in the river in the first place. So that's
that's huge. That's
sure.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And back on, we're talking about asking somebody directly, are you thinking about suicide? And they say yes. The next question has to be, do you have a plan? And here's why that's important. So the second thing is, the first one was time. The second thing is distance.
Okay.
So we want to create distance from the plan that has been on somebody's mind and that suicidal individual.
So removing firearms, medication, what else?
Yeah, so we want to keep the environment safe. Whatever that looks like for that particular person.
Right.
We want to keep that environment safe.
Right.
And here's what we've learned from research is that individuals who have been thinking about suicide and have a plan, if you remove that from their environment, the likelihood of them selecting another lethal means, way to die by suicide is very low. That is huge. That is a huge factor in suicide prevention.
Yeah.
So time and distance. Let's create time for the brain to get out of the suicidal crisis.
Yes.
And let's create distance.
Yes.
So that we can continue to let the brain get out of that crisis.
Right.
And that they no longer have access to lethal means.
I love how simple this is, right? It's such a heavy topic, right? But anybody can understand what you're saying right now.
Yeah, correct.
And anybody can choose to remove that gun or remove those pills or, remove the knife or whatever it is that is harmful to that person, you know?
Yeah. Things like bridge barriers have been incredibly impactful. Mm-hmm. One community put up a bridge barrier. They were seeing an increase in suicide rates. And
like on a specific bridge?
Yes, on a specific bridge and within the community as a whole.
Right.
And they put up bridge barrier and they saw a 50% reduction in suicides in that community.
Oh, wow.
From one bridge barrier.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
We know that those things can make a huge impact.
Yeah.
Oftentimes when we hear from survivors of suicide attempts, specifically ones around the Golden Gate Bridge, they will tell you that the minute they stepped off,
It was a mistake.
It was a mistake.
It was a regret.
Yep.
Yeah.
Immediately. And so we're trying to create that.
And I believe that too. And from my personal experience, keep me on track here because I want to talk.
Yeah.
I want to like talk about one thing, and then I want to talk about what was the community project that you were working on to remove firearms from the house?
Yeah, the Armory Project.
Is that still a thing?
It's in full motion. So what Jessica's talking about is we last year we saw a report. Actually, it's been 2 years now, which is crazy. We saw a CBS report on a guy in Louisiana who's a veteran who owns a gun shop in Louisiana.
Yes.
And he had a friend that showed up one day and just was kind of hanging around the shop. And at the end of the visit said, "Do you mind holding my firearms for me?" Mm-hmm. And Caleb said, "Sure." And then the guy disappeared and didn't contact for like 4 months. Caleb said, "Man, what's going on?"
Right.
And he says, "Struggling." I was struggling and I had nowhere else to go. And you're the only person I knew that would take all my firearms and I could keep myself safe.
And do we have a place like that now in Arkansas?
We have 12 locations.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
I knew. Okay. I literally have goosebumps because when I first met you, this didn't exist.
No, it didn't exist.
It was something that you guys were really working on. I got literally goosebumps.
I know.
Yes.
It made me cry. So, but we saw the report in Louisiana. And so Louisiana started as a grassroots movement in tandem with their VA.
Mm-hmm.
And so they made this network of what is called a community armory. So these locations.
Yes, community armory.
Yeah,
that's what I was.
You're good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's locations where people can voluntarily surrender firearms.
Yes.
And this can be for really a whole myriad of things. I'm nervous for myself. I'm actively suicidal. I want to keep my environment safe. My husband is actively suicidal. I want to keep our environment safe. I'm a grandparent. My grandkids are coming over, and I want to keep our environment safe for them.
Absolutely.
It has far
instead of giving it to a friend or something else like that, because you just never know. I mean,
correct.
Yeah.
And so we started working on it. And what's funny is
because it helps with the stigma too. It's like you may not want to give it to your friend, right? Like, you may not want your friend to know because it's so hard to talk about.
Yeah. It's so hard. And specifically what we see more often is, men are at a higher risk for suicide.
Yep.
And firearms are more often used.
Yeah.
And so this allows that opportunity where you're not having to call up a buddy and say, "I am not good. Can you take all of these?"
Right.
Instead, you're going to someone who is very familiar with firearms. It's another person in that community.
And does the government support this? So how did we get this? Yeah.
So, well, the way we worked on it, it's kind of funny. We started working on it independently. Had no idea that while we were working on it, Little Rock VA was working on it because it goes through the VA.
Right.
And so, and then we had a moment where we reached out and said, "Hey, could we work with you guys?" And they said, "This is the craziest timing because we're already there in Arkansas. We're expanding to Arkansas, but now we need legislation to help us expand."
Yeah.
And that's where AFSP came in on our advocacy effort.
Yes, I think that was the year before I went.
Yeah. So we advocated with all of our legislators and got legislation actually presented.
And guys, that just goes to show how advocacy does matter.
It does. And I'll be really transparent. When I got the call from my board chair, who's just an incredible human being, she said, "Do you think we could do this in Arkansas?" I kind of laughed and said, "No." And I was negative. I didn't think it was going to be possible. And then we started making phone calls, and one after another was, "No, that makes sense. Yeah, we love it. That's a really smart idea."
It's a great idea.
So,
because I think a lot of people are weird. "Oh, the government's going to take my guns away," or "this is going to happen," or "that's going to happen," right? I'm a macho man. I'm not giving, I'm unreliable. It's crazy. You don't have to. You can just drop your weapons off, drop your guns off. You don't have to say the reasons why.
Yeah.
You can just drop them off, hold them, and
right.
You can say whatever you need to say.
Correct. And I think
or whatever you want to say.
The other important part of this that I think folks need to hear is that, obviously all lethal means are something we want to focus on. How can we create distance? We know that saves lives.
Yes.
But why firearms is something that we feel like is something we need to focus on, specifically here in Arkansas. So 65% of people that die by suicide here in the state is by firearm. And the national average is 50%. So we're higher than the national average. And it just was something that when I came in, we had to talk about it.
Yep.
We
have to talk about it. Yeah.
So it was a big part of that.
I want to tap into, let's see. Oh, yeah. It was a personal experience. You said when somebody was the Golden Gate Bridge, the first moment they stepped on the ledge, their first, can you repeat that?
Yeah, their first thought is,
regret.
Or what they've said to us is immediately they didn't want to do it.
Are you talking about survivors?
Survivors.
That jumped.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about personal experience, and then I want to talk about how we're not supposed to talk about the way in which someone dies also.
Yeah.
So I want to tap into that. So, but just to reference it, after I had found my brother who died by suicide, which was like very traumatic, and I dealt with PTSD for a very, very, very long time. And that's, again, why it took me such a long time to get to this point. To be in a place where I'm educated and I have the confidence to talk about it, right? Because we don't want to make something worse. And unknowingly, we may have the best intentions in the world, but we may not know.
Yeah.
But I heard Justin's voice afterwards. I ran down the stairs and I ran out to the front yard. And I looked up the sky and I screamed and I was like, why, God, why? And I hear Justin's voice, big sis, I didn't mean to. And I look over at my brother. And I said, John, he didn't mean to. It was an accident. Yes, he died by suicide. But I think just the same thing what you're saying, that moment that happened, survivors were like, and so it was just, I do believe that it's a regret. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that people are in so much pain. And then, again, I spoke to the college students. I said, drugs and alcohol, Adderall, drinking. Like, I know that's like Adderall and drinking is like a big thing. And college students, they think they need to take Adderall to test. And Justin had alcohol and Adderall in his system at the time where he made that decision. And that alters our brain.
Right.
And so I spoke at his funeral. Sigma Pi came to his funeral. And their fraternity was suicide prevention.
Yeah, yeah.
And I said, you guys, you got to look at the drugs and the alcohol that are getting mixed together. Yeah. And he also had NyQuil in his system at the same time.
Yeah.
So yes, I do believe that people that are already gone or people that have survived a suicide, do regret it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think to your point, it is important for people to hear, we do talk about kind of the do's and don'ts is we don't want to talk about lethal means.
Yes.
And the reasoning behind this is because it can be triggering for loss survivors.
Yes.
We don't want to re-traumatize people in graphic, details. And what we've found with suicide prevention is that part of the story is actually not important. It's not critical.
And this is one of the biggest reasons why I'm so glad that I found you, because I thought the opposite when I first met you. But I never really spoke about it, right? Yeah. Because to be vulgar or aggressive or to explain what you saw or do this or do that, right. I thought that would really drive the nail into people. And I think a lot of people think that,
right.
And people want to know how.
Right, correct.
And people also want to know how. It's like this
fascination as human beings.
It is.
We're fascinated by that.
The how does not matter.
It doesn't matter.
And it actually perpetuates the problem.
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted to say today.
Yeah.
It doesn't. But I thought oh my gosh, if I'm so intense with it, I'm so graphic with it, that's really going to drive it in to just share my emotional experience and how painful that was for me. And so other people can feel it, but that's not necessary.
Right.
It's absolutely not necessary. I'm so glad I found you guys before I decided to share any of my personal story.
Yeah. And that's oftentimes when I engage with the community, people just don't know. I mean, a great...
And I would say, if you know someone that died by suicide, try not to ask how.
Correct. Yeah, I would definitely...
Let's not do that.
Definitely not do that.
I mean, I'm going to say when I do hear about it, even my brain goes, I wonder how, but I think everybody's brains does that maybe, but let's not do that, guys.
For sure. And I have a great...
So do not ask how.
I have a great example of this. My husband and I went out and did the bourbon tour up here with one of our distilleries. We both love bourbon. And, I had my FSB hat off.
Yeah.
And we met a couple and started talking to them. And I said, what do you do for a living? And she said, I'm a fundraiser, which is wild for me to find fundraisers out in the wild. But she was like, what organization do you work with? And I said, I work for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And her fiance whips his head around and immediately starts sharing all of this lived experience.
Oh, no.
And it went from cool party vibes to like, all the way forward. So, and I think it's one of those things when it's an honest thing of like, oh, you're somebody who's safe to talk to about suicide, which is great. We want those things, right?
Right.
Those things. But also, we want to limit sharing graphic details. It's not necessary. We also want to, as we talked about previously, we want to avoid...
Because you can trigger other people.
Correct.
And I think that was the one thing that I loved about you so much, because you were like, Jessica, I remember you're like, what are you doing to protect yourself?
Yeah.
Like, I want to make sure that you also... And I think, I advocated last year in Washington, and it was such an amazing experience. I think we got 32 new sponsors in the Senate, something like that. Don't quote me on my numbers. But I remember there was a point in which, like, I choose to share my story when I feel like it really means the most, or it's going to create impact, right? But you taught me how to limit it, and you also told me it's okay if you do not want to.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And I think that for people who, suicide survivors, you have a heart for them too.
Oh, yeah.
And like, us that are left behind, like, sometimes all we think about is like Justin or my dad or that person, and we fail to think about ourselves and what we need and whatnot. And so I remember I was having a tough day in Washington, because I limit how much I'm sharing, how much I'm talking about it too, because like, how you think is how you feel. And if you're thinking a certain way, and no matter like where I'm at in my healing journey, and even though I don't struggle with suicide ideation anymore, like, you always want to keep an eye on your mental health, and you want to like just make sure that you're in a safe space. And if it's too much, you can tell yourself it's okay to like back off a little bit.
Right.
And I remember that day you actually called me. I think Karen picked up on it. Karen called me and you're like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, I'm good. And I had just shared my story like 4 times. And there was
like blank stare.
And there was like,
yeah.
And then there was also somebody from a different state from AFSP that was kind of basically like, what did you just call it? Just pouring all their life experiences and not really like following the rules.
Graphic details.
And I was like, I don't know if you think that you don't follow the rules, because I'm also, and I feel like you probably get that a lot too, because I'm educated as well. So like, this is a safe place to do that. But it was a lot for me, and it actually did trigger me.
Yeah.
And I had to go and like lay down and like take a moment and like breathe. Yeah. But I love that, every step of the way, I'm gonna tear up, every step of the way, you guys have supported that journey to help us be in a place to help others.
Yeah.
We also have to like take that time.
Yeah.
So it's like all the good that we want to do in the world, it's also important to do that good for ourselves.
Oh,
and that you taught me that it's like to take the time. And I think you guys have a program for suicide survivors as well.
We have several programs. So a couple of them that I think are important for people to hear. And I also want to expand on this in saying like, it's really important to take care of lost survivors.
Yeah.
And the things that I hear that get sent to lost survivors horrify me. Truly horrify me.
Yeah. There's a stigma for that too.
There's a stigma.
Oh, you're the girl that lost her brother. You're the girl that lost her dad. It was hard to smile.
Right. Correct.
Why are you smiling? You just lost your dad and brother. Like, there was so much.
Correct. It is, some of the stuff that gets said is just, it truly breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Because our lost survivors have experienced some of the darkest days that you can as a human being, and they need support, and they need community, and they need somebody to show up. And the other thing they need is they need you to say their name. Say the lost person's name.
Wait.
Say your brother's name.
Oh, really?
When somebody is talking to you, oftentimes what we hear from lost survivors is they won't say their name. They won't talk about Justin. They just...
How ironic is it that we made the nonprofit just in time?
They just say, your brother. or they won't talk about it. And I think it's a genuine, people are truly, they don't want to upset you. As a loss survivor, that's often what,
again, like people don't know how to talk about it.
They don't know how to talk about it, so they don't talk about it.
And that's why we're here. That's why this podcast exists.
So they don't talk about it. But the thing is, it's like, you need to hear me say Justin's name.
Okay, you're going to make that again.
you know, we need to use their names.
Well, and do you like what they did with the symbol?
I love it. Actually, I thought before we started, I was like, did you change the logo? Because I love it. It's great. It's literally great.
They did.
Oh, I love
my
it.
podcast manager.
Yeah, it's great.
I love it so much.
It's so good.
Yeah.
You know, like,
it's already touched like multiple people here. They've told me that I love that. It's really going to resonate. And yeah, so
good.
Really great podcast. Then I lost studio.
Oh, for sure. But I will also say, you know, loss survivors, couple things. If you have a loss survivor in your community or in your friend group, talk to them about their person. Check in on them. How are you doing? Because suicide loss is different than other grief and other loss grief.
Yeah.
And it's really important that you understand it's not linear. So oftentimes I have loss survivors who, you know, 1 month, we're going to set the world on fire.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to advocate. We're going to get in all the prevention education. We're going to do all the things.
And then boom, it hits them.
And then the next month,
crickets.
Totally silent.
Yeah.
And it's because we're back in being mad. Or we're back in being, I'm not processing. And that's okay. All those things are okay.
See, that's what I love about you guys. You know,
it's important to know those things, though.
It is.
Interacting with loss survivors, right?
Yeah, it really is.
And it's also important to say, hey, Jessica, if you don't want to share your story at this time, that's okay. I need you to listen to that voice inside you that's saying,
you told me that at the Capitol, and I was like, no, I want to do it.
But I'll also say, so the Saturday before Thanksgiving is the International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day. And we have events take place all over the nation. But the idea behind it, oftentimes what I hear from loss survivors, and really specifically, it's all loss survivors, but specifically I hear this from parents that have lost children.
Yeah.
Is I just want to talk to another parent. I just want to talk to someone else who's experienced this.
Right. So you don't feel so alone. And it's
Correct.
true. It's true.
Correct.
It's weird how people have come to me through the salon, sat in my chair, and have, you know, read the story, and they felt like it was a safe place to talk to. It's like, it's kind of amazing. Yeah. And so how many lives it's already touching, and how communities coming together. One of the things, though, that really blew my mind was for every suicide, 25 others attempt.
Correct.
Can you explain that?
Yeah. There's
like, how did they figure that out?
Over 1 million families are affected by suicide attempts.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing when we're talking about, you know, I'm scared to ask somebody if they're thinking about suicide directly. Oftentimes we'll tell people, and you'll laugh at this, and I've even said this in like pretty major meetings, but we used to have this theory about sex education, and if we don't talk about sex, no one will have it.
Mm-hmm.
Same concept with suicide. You can't sit here and say, well, if we don't talk about it, then no one will no one will die by suicide.
Right.
Nobody will kill themselves. Nobody's going to think about suicide. And the reality is, it's already here.
Right.
People are thinking about suicide.
Yeah.
It is something that has to be addressed.
It's one of the largest leading causes of death in the United States.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about it like we're right to. We're not asking the right questions. And
correct.
So that's why we're, you know, that's why we're here today.
For sure, yeah. And it's important too that loss survivors have the ability to come together, you know, getting back on Survivor Day and giving them opportunities to connect with each other, because you need that support. You know, I talk about, you know, 1 month you might be great, next month you're not so great. And we launched a campaign last year in response actually to a loss that happened here in Arkansas that was pretty significant. And it was someone from the mental health community that died by suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And it just rocked us, honestly, because what it said to us was that out of anyone, that person should have known they could have reached out.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an article that came out in January of last year talking about the power of 8 minutes and the importance of, you know, typically it takes people's brains about 8 minutes to debrief.
Uh-huh.
and the importance of having friends that you can reach out to and set up, do you have 8 minutes?
Yes.
And so we launched a Do You Have 8 Minutes campaign. And I don't know if you're familiar with Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
But okay, cool. I love him. But he put out on TikTok a video, and he was being interviewed. He had a friend that texted him, or they were talking one day, and she said, I've really been struggling. Like, I've not been okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I kind of got mad at her. What do you mean you're not okay? Why didn't you tell me? And she said, I did. And he went back through his text message and said, where? And she said, when I asked, do you want to come over for dinner? And he goes, how am I supposed to know that that's like, you're not okay? That could be another Tuesday, you know?
Right.
And so
now the code for that is, do you have 8 minutes?
Do you have 8 minutes? I love that. Because then it's not you having to be vulnerable and say, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
It's just, do you have 8 minutes that you can pick up the phone and call me and talk to me? Or
I love how creative that you guys got with that too, because it's like, okay, we know there's a stigma. We know people are afraid to reach out. So you created all these little things in order for people to kind of, reach out. We just need to get them out into the world.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm just over the moon about having you on this podcast. I am so excited. I feel like we could talk for hours and hours and hours. And I want to invite you back on the show because I feel like we have more to talk about, and you bring so much value to the world and so much education. And, my goal is that the people that are listening, that this will help. Or if you know somebody that's struggling, send them this video. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that we wanted to talk a little bit about, right before we get off, I don't know if you wanted to share a little bit about the postpartum journey. I know that was a really important cause when I first met you.
Yeah.
And a program that you wanted AFSP to possibly create.
Yep.
And so where are you at with that? And listeners don't know what I'm talking about, so go ahead.
Okay. So part of the reason why I got really interested in AFSP and why I'm here is I have lived experience. So what that means is I have struggled with suicidal thinking, and specifically around postpartum. So my first child, he's 6 years old now. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was so excited to have a baby and
be a mom and all the things.
And I just found myself in a very, very dark place. And, I think we can expand on that on another podcast.
Yes.
Details, but I am...
We'll keep the listeners listening.
Yes. Tease you. But
yeah.
One of the things that...
There's a lot of women out there that have postpartum and probably need to hear what you have to say.
Correct. And I think what you touched on briefly and what I'll expand on is that as we share our stories safely,
yes,
what I'm finding is that women are saying, oh my gosh, me too. But I didn't think I could talk about it.
Right.
And there's this level of extra stigma on postpartum. We're like, you're supposed to be a mom. You're just a baby. You're supposed to be like
taking care of it and all of it.
But it's so much more than that. It's so complicated. And again, going back to the callback of when you ask somebody if they're thinking about suicide, for them to be able to say yes and feel seen. That's very. So for me to hear from another person, and that's what kind of pulled me out of it, is I heard from another person, wow, the same thoughts that I was feeling and the same things I was.
And you're like, okay, I'm not alone in this.
And I thought, I'm not weird. It's not me. It's not just me. Other people deal with this. And that's the whole point of that, sharing that lived experience. Yeah. Thankfully, we want to kind of normalize the conversation around it.
Absolutely.
So people can go, oh, okay. That's not just me.
Yeah, and these conversations may be hard to have, but people need to hear them. I think we're going to have a lot of people listening to this, and a lot of people are going to get help from it. Speaking of help, can you tell our listeners where they can go to find, I guess, AFSP.com?
Yep.
There's 988, all of those things. Yeah. That's going to be in our intro and outro. And then specifically for suicide survivors. So everything is on the AFSP.com.
Yeah, it's
website.
AFSP.org.
I'm sorry.
You're good. And it's got, I will say our website is a plethora of information.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a loss survivor, there's tons of free resources on that website. If a lot of times our loss survivors will say something that was super helpful to them is we have 2-minute clips of all of our researchers,
mm-hmm.
And what they have specifically studied.
Yes.
And that is fascinating to me. I enjoy watching those, but it's also been helpful for our loss survivors that are really battling with that statement of why.
Yeah.
So going through those and kind of seeing those, that's all on the website. Volunteering with AFSP is all on the website. If you're not in Arkansas specifically, we have chapters all over the nation. So
nationwide.
Can look to see which chapter, and we have events coming up this fall called the Out of the Darkness Walk, so you can engage that.
Yeah, Just in Time did the walk. Yeah, it was amazing.
So, AFSP.org, but then 988. 988 is really an important tool for people to know about.
And it's private.
Right.
So
right. And it's important too, and this is something I shared with Jessica when we first met, was that 988 is not just for the person that's in crisis. It's for someone who might be taking care of somebody in crisis. Or if you're worried about something.
Right.
You can call 988.
Yes, I had a friend in Orange County. She calls me and she says, hey, my husband is suicidal. I don't know what to do. I was like, oh my gosh, Jacqueline, what do I do? And she's like, get 988 on the phone. I was like, so we three-way 988. And I said, hey, this is my friend. Her husband has lethal means. Like, can you please help me? I have so much anxiety right now. I want to help my friend, but like I'm like kind of frozen right now. Yeah. We need your help. And they stayed on the phone probably for like an hour and 45 minutes, walked us through everything, actually like found her a number to call. Her husband went down to the clinic, got the help that he needed. He's here with us today.
That was making me cry.
Yeah, he's here with us today. So, yeah.
But those are the things that are important for people here.
Yeah. And the thing is like suicide, it affects every single person. It's not just, poor people, rich people, middle class, good looking people, not good looking people, like whatever. It's every single person. Like, people could look at somebody and go, they look like they have it all together. They're doing totally fine. Like, gosh, I wish I could be them, but you have no idea what they're struggling with. You have no idea. So like, it's something that can affect everyone at some point in their life. So, well, I think this wraps up our episode.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to have you on again.
Yay.
If you're struggling, remember, how you think is how you feel. If you're feeling still heavy, start by shifting the thought. You're not stuck. Your brain can change. So can your story. I'm Jessica G. This is the Just in Time podcast, and I'll see you next time. Until then, keep going, never give up, and remember, the world is better with you in it, whether you believe it or not. To help reach others, please share this with your friends, family, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and donate.